Hi, I'm Kiki.
And I'm Kemi.
And you're listening to
Your Advisors Will See You Now, a podcast that will help you to figure out all of your options for life after high school.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Your Advisors Will See You Now. We are Kiki and Kemi. I don't know. I'm just going to introduce us. You know, maybe it's your first time listening. My name is Kiki,
and I'm Kemi,
and that's Kemi.
Your Advisors Will See You.
And you're listening to Your Advisors Will See You Now. Yes, but we are coming today with one of our After the Degree episodes. If you're a new listener, our After the Degree series, I always struggle to say what this is, but it's really just topics that we discuss about life after you graduate from college. I'll just keep it that simple. We sometimes share things about after graduating from high school, but typically it's things about graduating from college, how to build friends, how to network, dealing with life events that happen, in your adult years. Today, we're talking about being unemployed, which is something that both Kemi and I have experienced. So we're not just, making things up. We've been through unemployment before. Like, I was just like thinking about, a Martin when they're like, Tommy, you ain't got no job. Tommy was like always unemployed. So they say on Martin, but you don't have to always be unemployed. So we just wanted to share our experience with that. And at the end, we always try to give some advice and some tips too, or I'll say for this one, we'll say reflection of that period in our lives. So do you wanna kick us off with your experience, what it was like or how it started,
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, we touched on this a little bit in our other episode for dealing with the unexpected. But so a little bit of background about me, like I always had been working since I say like 5, because basically my mom has an early learning center and she had it like shortly after like I was born. Mm-hmm. So I grew up in that and I always have been working in that. So I would come home like from school, put the cots up. That was part of my allowance. I would help pass out the snacks, help clean up the table and stuff like that, read to the kids. And that was always me. Like I always had that ethic of working. Mm-hmm. So, and then once I went to college, still had like I worked at the multicultural office. So I did that. And then when I got out of college, I ended up going back to the daycare, became like the program manager there. And then I pivoted out of that and I started working. And that's how I really started getting into higher ed, because I worked at a technical college. Now I was at that technical college for a while. And then, so mind you, just again, I'd been working since 5 up into that part at the technical college. I had never not been working. And I would also work during the summers too, when, we're off of college. I would always work in the summers. So that's just how it was. I was always trying to make my own money. So when the school that I worked at, the trade school, was closing its campus, I took that as such a slap in the face because, up to that point, mentally, I thought my worth and my value was working. And because I didn't know what else, to do. So that was really hard for me, and I would always have like people, I would talk to like family, like, oh, this happened. They're like, okay, girl, well, take a break and then jump into the search, but try not to let it consume your mind. But, me, I was like, no, I need to apply all the time. So that was, if I could go back in time, I definitely would have scheduled that better versus having that be the main thing on my mind all the time of trying to get a job and making that be the thing that's just a constant, like, and not taking a time to take a little break and breathe and fill that time with better things. Because at that time, I was with my husband. So it's not that it would have been like an issue, or even if I wasn't at that time, I would have been able to like be with my mom or my sister or what have you. So it wasn't, in my mind, it was like, oh my goodness, just this underlying thriving of I need to be working drove me. And it also drove me insane. I really do believe that. And it took a while for me to really get in the swing of, okay, how else can I fill this day and be productive versus just applying for jobs all the time? Because I felt like I was going to bang my head against the wall, submitting all these resumes, getting ghosted, or someone, you go through the interview process, they don't select you. And it's like, man, talk about failure, failure. It's like someone saying like, you fail, you fail, you fail. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. It's like, woof.
Yeah.
It's like, man, like, so that was a lot for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wish that I don't want to go too deep into it because we'll talk about some other things that you can do to fill your time of unemployment so you don't get like me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to share your experience before we dive into that?
Mm-hmm. And before I share I was going to say, like, just listening to you talk, like your unemployment was like unexpected. And that's like, I just want to kind of share this too. Like, it can be unexpected unemployment. Some people choose to be unemployed, and there's different levels of unemployment. That's what I just wanted to like make that known, or like say it just so it's not sounding like people are only unemployed when they get fired, or
that's true.
A campus closes down. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what too? Because I was still I wasn't like too young, but I've never been
you were young.
like laid off before. And I feel like when you're a kid, all you hear about is you're fired. So I was like, oh my gosh, was I fired? And then my mom, like, everyone's like, no, you were laid off. The campus is closing. It's called a reduction in workforce. That happens. But I'm like, oh, well, no one ever brought those words up. We were playing pretend as kids. So for me, I took it as though, for me, I still felt like I was fired. You know what I mean? But yeah. Wow.
I mean, that's what it feels like being fired. So yeah, I was just like thinking there's levels to unemployment. There's some unemployment by force and sometimes it's by choice. But for me, I'll share this part, like I'll share this like tidbit at the end that we're gonna reflect at the end. But I was working at the College Advising Corps, and I kind of knew, like, so typically the College Advising Corps, you do like a two-year term, I think is what they call it, but on for like an extra year doing another position. So I kind of knew it was coming up, but again, I'm gonna share at the end. I didn't really prepare for unemployment though. Looking back, and that was 8 years ago now. Looking back, I don't really know what I thought I was gonna do. Maybe I thought I was gonna go to grad school, try to reapply to grad school, but I just didn't really prepare for unemployment. So in a way, it wasn't being laid off. It wasn't being fired. It was just my term came to an end.
Yeah, your contract ended.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I just didn't prepare well for the next steps. But again, I can't even recall what I thought I was going to do. So for 8 months, I was looking for a job. And I think I wanted to stay, remain in the nonprofit space or return to higher education, which is obviously what I ended up doing. But it was just like, looking back, it was 8 months of, maybe it was what I needed. Like you're saying, you like were applying to jobs like vigorously and you needed like a little break. I don't think I was really applying to jobs vigorously. Like I was applying to them as I saw them, as they came, as they interested me. But I ended up working a Kumon Center, which is like a math and reading center for kids and teens. But at first, and I think maybe it was like humbling. Like maybe it was like something I never thought I would be doing, because people that worked there were teachers who just, who did that after their job during the day, or retired teachers, or retired people that wanted to work there, or other teens. Like I feel like I was one of the only people, not the only person, but one of few people that were just like there because I didn't have a job. And so in a way it was humbling, because I always remember like when, at this point I'm out of college. I guess I'm like, what was I, 8 years ago? Well, whatever. I'm not gonna say how old I was. No, it's fine. I think I was like 25 at the time. And so I just thought I was supposed to be like doing something, legit. I can't discredit Kumon because it was actually like really fun. But I remember when I like went in there for the interview, she was like, okay, you have the job, on the spot. And she was like, yeah, they're really sweet. And I will say they liked me a lot. Like I always remember when I went to go quit, she was like, no, can you please stay? Can you please stay? And I was like, I was going in there to quit that job. I just felt so bad. I was like, okay, I'll do Saturdays. But it was really nice. I think they just needed help. It was really nice of her to hire me on the spot. You're absolutely right. But she said you'll be starting out as a grader. So I was just grading. So basically in Kumon, they're doing their worksheets and they bring them to the grader to check them if they, to see if they answered correctly. If they didn't, you give it back to them to correct. You keep, working with them until they correct it. And I started out as a grader, and you just like sit in the back, and they have like all the levels and the answer books. You're just grading papers, and it was like it might have been like $8 an hour. And I think I went in there, my prideful self, trying to negotiate, and maybe it's not pride, but I was just like $9 an hour. But again,
Right.
it was a very humbling experience in a good way too. Like it kind of brought me down to earth to be like, well, you didn't do the work. You didn't do the work to prepare yourself for something else. So this is what you're doing. But I ended up liking it. I met cool people there, and it was just fun. Like it was a good change of pace to work with kids. At a point, she kind of she promoted me, I'll say, like to working with the kids. So at first, like a grader, you don't really talk to the kids. You just, check their work. But now I got to like sit with them. And these are like, I was working with the younger kids, probably 4 or 5, 4 to 10. And it was really fun. Like I always love working with kids. So that was a good time to just be kind of chill, like laid back and, just doing something I enjoyed doing. Even if it wasn't giving me the money that I really wanted at that time. It was like a just relaxing kind of experience. So
so when did you start working there after your contract finished?
Maybe a month, or I want to say like maybe 2 months into me not being at College Advising Corps anymore. That's what I can remember, I think.
Not bad. That's not bad.
No, it wasn't bad. And again, like they were like across the street, like from where we used to live. It was across the street, and I did Kumon myself when I was younger, and so I knew what it was. And so I don't even know. Again, I can't even tell you what made me go down there. And it may have been because we always get sushi by the place. We always go to Goodwill. I may have just been like, oh, let me go see what's happening over here. It's possible that they were hiring at the time. I just think I was in a sense like desperate for something. So, and I was like, it's across the street.
But at least you still had something to preoccupy your time while it's kind of like, okay, you have all this time now. What do I do with it? So at least you kind of have an anchor and a little bit of cash coming in, even though it's not much. It's something.
Yeah, no, for sure. It helped.
I was gonna say, were you doing it part-time or was it full-time? And if it was part-time, what else did you do to fill in that time while you were unemployed?
It was technically part-time, but again, I think because she knew I had the time and because they trusted me with what I was like with the work, they would ask me to come in like other days too. So they had like, I would say they had like one, it's a husband and wife that own that location. So they had like one full-time employee. So she was doing a lot of the stuff, but I would say maybe a month or so in, they asked me to come in on other days or before like class started things. So it was never like a full-time job. But what did I do in the meantime? I would say nothing else productive. I'll be quite honest. Like I wasn't doing anything else like active towards work, like towards looking for something. That was my only job at the time. And again, I'll share my hindsights later, but that was probably one of the best times of my health and wellness journey. So I was like cooking. I was like really getting into cooking then, and really getting into fitness then, or like really enjoying fitness then. So I would say I was just more like active in that sense. Like I don't think I had a gym membership or anything like that, but just getting on YouTube. So I think I was honestly taking care of myself better during that time than any other time that I can really remember in recent years. Yeah.
No, I think I could definitely. I remember doing the same thing too. I started when I got laid off from my job at that technical college. Excuse me. I did start working out and definitely taking more time to cook because I was home and I didn't have to do any, long distance traveling for work or anything.
Right.
Before we even get into, some different things that people can do to kind of be more productive during their unemployment in addition to looking for jobs, I also did want to share too. So there was 2 points where I was unemployed. The first one was I was laid off. The second one was actually my choice. So I had worked at this particular place and I was there for honestly, I think a year.
I think it was a year.
Yeah. And it's really disappointing when you hear stories of people that they're in places that they work and they really don't like it. And you're like, no, that could never happen to me. And then that happened to me. And I worked at a place where I was not in alignment with the values or the ethics of what was happening. How we were dealing with some of these issues I just felt a lot of it was not in alignment, and I didn't feel right working there. So for me, and just how there was kind of a lot of lack of things in disorganization. And obviously I'm not going to drop name, whatever, but for me,
I'll say it was. No, I'm playing.
No.
I would never.
Not like we're famous out here and like they're like, oh,
I would never. No, I would know. You don't say it, I would never say it.
Right. But all you got to say is like, I state the places that I've worked that I loved. I don't really state the place that I didn't. So if you listen to this podcast, you can deduce. But the place that I worked at, I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I feel like morally, I'm not with it. Into the disorganization, the lack of help, or the lack of even trying to fix things, and still having not really seeing the best interest for some of these students. I was like, you know what? So that was when I pulled out, and I had to. I felt, and I even actually, you know what? The biggest aha moment was I had such a bad migraine. I had to deliver this news to these two students, and this wasn't even. I was like, the bad news was not even my cause, and I had to deliver it. That's how I also felt too. I was like, how y'all not stepping in to deliver the news? Right. Was some prison's issue. But anyway, I had such a bad migraine that my tongue went numb and my hand went numb. And I was like, now this is affecting my health. I think God used that as a wake up sign for me to go. So that's when I chose to be like, all right, I'm putting in my notice and I'm out. And during that time, actually similar to you, I was able to get kind of like a side gig doing a little bit of like virtual assistant work. So that was able to preoccupy my time in addition to job hunting during that time as well. But so I just wanted to mention that story because we've definitely been on that Facebook group that talks about people working in some very unhealthy work environments. And like, I just want to leave. So I wanted to share with the audience that like, I've been there too. And I get it. Yeah. Because I think I always used to be that person too. Like, how can someone just leave their job, not having something else lined up when it impacts your health and your well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to. Like, you have to go. You have to go. And like, I believe like God's timing is the best timing for sure. Because I like just hearing, and I've mentioned my old job, the name, but just like hearing what's going on there now, I can't imagine me being there now. Like, I just wonder at what point. I left there in August of last year. I was wondering at what point, if I was still there, I was there past August, at what point I would have left. Like, you know, and of course we want to listen to what God is telling us to do. But I felt like if I was there any longer, I was just gonna quit, like just quit. But you know, not to be disobedient. But yeah, you're right, and that Facebook group for sure has showed. Like I you were saying at the beginning, you've never thought you'd be in a job you didn't like. You hear about it, but never thought it would be you. And same thing for me. I never thought. I just always thought, and I've mentioned it before, I always thought I'd be in student affairs. I never thought I would dislike it. I never thought a job would, or not even the job. I never thought leaders' decisions would impact me so much. Like, I take it so personally, like you said, that it just didn't align with me, like with what I was there to do for students. But when I started hearing people were getting like physically sick, and I heard you talk, I heard you texted me that day or texted me. Say like that the migraine was like so bad. I never really heard of anybody's health being impacted by a job, but it definitely happens. Like, not just like, of course we think mental health affects you, or it can be affected, excuse me, but I've never heard of like physical ailments from a job. Yeah. And if that's happening, like you said, if that's happening, you can't be there anymore, because they're not gonna your insurance probably is not even gonna cover what's going to happen if you stay there any longer and let that thing go on.
Yeah. And I really do believe that was the Lord telling me to get out, because again, it goes back to when I said I was working for my whole life. So I was like, oh, maybe it's just me overreacting. Maybe I can just hang in there. Maybe. And the Lord was like, girl, if you do not leave, girl, this is not for you. This is not what I have for you. And like, now where I am is in a much, much better space. Like, I praise the Lord, stepping on faith on that. But, I just wanted to share that piece of like, I've been in the position of what it's like to be laid off. And I've been in the position where I was like, I can't be here. But yeah, we also want to share, a little bit of some helpful tips in this reflection that we have. But I thought it would be great if we could just discuss how or what we can do during this time to be more productive, because even when you're online, you definitely come across posts of people like, I've been applying for this long, and it can be mentally defeating, and it can be mentally defeating, being totally transparent. There's definitely times where I was like, man, like I have these degrees, or I know, like I know what I'm capable of, but no one is accepting my application. And man, that can really mess with you sometimes, to be real. So we just kind of wanted to give you some other things that you can do to fulfill during that unemployment time, to kind of help you mentally and not just focus in on that, and maybe give you some more awareness of, what things you could be missing out of, because your mind is always focused on one thing. So hope that makes sense. But you want to kick us off with some ideas, Kiki?
We already mentioned things that we did in the health and wellness, like the cooking and the working out. I feel like that's the best time when you're not working, especially if you're, again, we mentioned that there's unemployment by choice, unemployment by force. I'll just say it that way. But especially if you were laid off or fired, and you're now unemployed, that is like you said, it's a hit. It's like a hit to you. That's a lot. Like you were saying, you were laid off and you thought you were fired. And I'm sure being laid off is not a good space to be in either. But that's the time to really take care of your mental health, is in those moments that you're like the most anxious. So getting a hobby, like if it's working out, if it's going for walks, if it's going to Pilates class, there's these meetup groups now. Just finding something outside of the house or away from your computer is really helpful too. And like I said, I took up cooking. I love to cook now. But something I
cooks very well.
Oh, thanks.
She
I'm trying.
Very well. If there's any single men out there that like eating good food, holla at you.
That's right. I'll make sure your belly is full. Your belly is full, sir. It's out there. Somebody listening. But something, or Kemi and I were talking before we started recording, something that I wish I would have done, and it's not, I don't want to say regret. Maybe it is a regret, but something I wish I would have done. So I mentioned before on the podcast, I wanted to be in the medical field, and I could have taken that time that I was like unemployed to be doing something. And I don't think at the time, I don't think I wanted to be in the medical field. Like I knew, college life, I was like, oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a physical therapist. And then I kind of like faded out, and that dream like became, I like realized that dream, I guess, a few years ago. But in that period of time of being unemployed, I could have been going to community college classes, like something simple, becoming a notary, taking notary classes, I was like, I like to cook, taking cooking classes. Like I could have been building my skill set. I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think I was applying to like nonprofit jobs and higher ed jobs, which, I landed in higher ed, but could have been filling that time. And looking back, working at a community college, there's so much stuff I could have been applying and probably gone to school for not free, but there's grants out there I could have been applying to at a community college. I could have used that resource to just build my skill set. I could have used their career counselors. I could have used Elon career counselors at that time. I don't think I even used that, but I really wish I would have, been like, I could have been a substitute teacher. I was working at Kumon, which was really fun. I liked it a lot, but I could have been subbing in that spare time too. I just wasn't really connecting the dots. So I guess sorry, I'm talking a lot, but to summarize this point, just being prepared a little bit more. I knew I was going to be leaving this job, and I remember I did not prepare myself to say like, okay, this job, we're counting down the months. It's 6 months away now. It's 3 months away now. Okay, you're ending this job next week. And by that point, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to be unemployed for this point. But I just did not prepare myself well. I know that's hard when you get fired, you get laid off, unexpectedly. It's always good to always be like working on your resume and going over your resume to see like, okay, where are some holes? Like, what can I be doing to build up? Just have a plan in your head of what you want to do in life. I know it's hard. I still don't know what I want to do in life, but I guess my point is just being better prepared for the unexpected kind of thing.
Yeah. I have two things to kind of plug in to do with your time. One that I found really beneficial when I was the second time around when I was unemployed was having like a schedule for myself. I can't apply for jobs every single day, all day, every day. Mentally, it's going to wear on you. So something I did was I did like a schedule for myself. There was like certain days that I would actually start combing through different job search databases. And on those, and I had the specific days that I was going to apply. So that way I gave myself a breather. And then I would plug in, like exercising. Then on the weekends, I would also volunteer at my church. And I want to plug in volunteering too, because you're like, well, why am I volunteering? Well, volunteering, yeah, you're helping people, but also you're networking. There's also little ways to network with people. Because even at that time, when I wasn't working, the lady I was working with, she was like, well, I'm actually going to transition out of this gig. Are you interested in transitioning into it? I actually ended up finding something not too long afterwards when I went to I ended up going to Clark, which is really great. But that could have been a possible opportunity for me to segue into that by natural networking. And then even, what some other healthy things that you can do during that time. Again, like Kiki said, like picking up a hobby, and trying to exercise, especially it can help a little bit with, those blues of those days where you're feeling really down. And another thing I was going to plug too is really taking this time to unpack what you want your next job to look like for you and really understanding yourself. What do you think you would find enjoyment in? What are some skills that you loved utilizing in your previous role that you would like to take on? Or maybe there's something new. So taking that time to figure that out, and that can also direct your career search as well. Because that's very beneficial. You don't want to get to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just applying for anything. And then you get into a job that you don't like. And then you're kind of repeating this cycle. You want to be in a job that's a proper fit. So trust me, you want a proper fit. You don't want to be, you don't. And because I'll be real, I took that other job that I ended up leaving, and I literally took it because I was like, oh, I need something right now, even though I really didn't.
Right.
And I didn't last there that long. So it's very important to get a proper alignment of where you want to go next.
Absolutely. And I would like, as I mentioned before too, especially if you're a college graduate, use your career services center. It's free if you're an alumni. And as I mentioned, I don't think I use my resources the best. So, even if you have the funds to not work for a little bit of time, that's great. Go do what you want. I would say too, like if you have that, like your savings built up and you can go out and travel, like go visit your friends, because you don't, visit your family. You don't know when you can see them again once you get a job. So it's like, do the things that you maybe couldn't do while you were working if you can afford it. But back to that point, sorry, that was a off topic, but use your resources, like your career services, like Kimmy mentioned, use your network as well. And volunteering can go on your resume. I know we're not doing things for a resume all the time, but that can go on your resume too. And that also may inspire something in you, like, oh, you're volunteering at a shelter, you're volunteering at Dress for Success, you're volunteering at a 5K. I don't know, you may be inspired in those volunteer spaces to go into those industries, whatever you're volunteering in. You just never know. So I think our main point is, yes, be applying to jobs. Don't just stay in the house applying to jobs. Like, get out and do the things you maybe couldn't do while you were tied down to a job. So
yeah, for sure. And if you're a person right now that maybe you're unemployed, maybe you're thinking of finding a new job, or maybe you're thinking of pivoting and you don't know where to begin, I will do a little shameless plug here that I do provide life coaching to help with that. And I actually have a specific 6-step plan to help you with that. So if you're like, I don't know where to begin, I don't really know where I should even look, or how do I know if there's another job out there that's a better fit for me, or how to really start an effective job search process, then feel free to reach out to me at coachkemi@gmail.com. That's coach with a K, KOACHKEMI@gmail.com. So if you're looking for help with that, feel free to reach out, and we could have a free 1-hour consultation and discuss all that.
Boom
cat.
That was like a really good spiel too. Like, very fluid job.
Thank you.
Coach Kemi, she's awesome.
Thanks, Kiki. But we hope you all found this episode really helpful. we knew that we could come in here and just spit the basic things of like, okay, well, apply this many days. But the major thing that we really reflect back on is how we were feeling that time and how we could have been more productive. So we hope that this helps you to kind of break out of that hamster wheel of that feeling, and helps you to give a little bit of resolution to that. So, and again, if you need any additional help, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to also listen to our podcast as we interview people in different careers. So that could also spark your interest and get those gears turning, because we have a career chat series. So check out our podcast, check out our TikTok, check out our Instagram, and reach out to us if you have questions. But until then, we'll see you in the next one.
See you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening to the latest episode of Your Advisors Will See You Now. Please make sure to follow us on all of our social media pages and check out our website. Take a look at the show notes below.
And please make sure to subscribe and share this podcast. Also, show us some love and please leave a 5-star review. Catch you next time.
See ya.